All right, class, welcome to your homework paper. Yay. All right, so this one's really short, so let's go ahead and get into it, all right? So, if you remember from the class lesson video, which you should have seen already, or if you took this paper from school, um, you hopefully remember what happened last. If you didn't, if you don't remember, it's okay. Basically, small states and large states are fighting because they're trying to agree how to get this constitution even, how to make sure that the large states don't get too much rights over the small states, and vice versa, that the small states aren't more powerful or equal to small states or large states. Sorry. So this guy, you see that picture right there, that is Roger Sherman. He's from Connecticut, and he said, "Guys, I think I have a solution to our problems." So people are like listening, like, okay, let's see what you got. And he says, okay, under Congress, the legislative branch will have a bicameral, two houses. Okay. Both have to agree on a law for in order for that law to be passed, to go to the president to sign. Okay. If one side says yes, the other side says no, the law is dead. Both have to agree. They're like, okay, so what's with the houses? What's each one of them? Okay, it's like this. There's a House of Representatives. Now, in the House of Representatives, the states get their power by the number of people in their state. So, of course, the large states are loving this. They're like, heck yeah, right? Because large states have more people than small states. So they're like, yeah, we like that. We like that. And it's like, okay, cool. Now, the second house, we'll call it the Senate. Every state's going to get two senators, no matter how big or how small. Every state gets two senators. So the small states were like, yeah, we like that. Yeah. So both houses have to agree in order for a law to pass? Yes. So that law can't favor just large states, because it'll pass in the House of Representatives, but it won't pass in the Senate. Okay. Um, Eligible voters in each state would elect their House of Representative members, and the state legislator would choose the senators. Okay. Each side, both sides loved this. They were like, that's beautiful. This is a great plan. So this became known as the Great Compromise, or as the original name was, the Connecticut Compromise. Now, here is where things get tricky. Sherman inadvertently, not intentionally, created an issue. Because remember, how does a state in the House of Representatives get their power? By population. So southern states that had slaves, they were like, so we're going to count our slaves, right? And that's where the anti-slave people were like, no, you don't count slaves. And this started a whole nother argument. Do you count slaves? Now, here's the thing. I know a lot of people are like, initially, a lot of students are initially like, yes, you should count the slaves. They're people. But here's the thing, those slaves at that time, yes, if they were counted as people, then slave states would get more power, and then they can make laws that kept slavery around. Slaves have no rights. Slaves can't even get an education, they get nothing. But the reason why those slave states wanted to count the slaves was so that they could have more power. And that's where the anti slave states were like, no, they don't count the people. You don't give them rights. You basically treat them like property. You wouldn't give, you know, this cup right here, you wouldn't give it rights. It's a piece of property. You own it. Just like you wouldn't count that as a person. So that's where the issue started coming. Okay. So they started arguing, fighting, went back and forth. Um, And eventually, remember, during this time, while they're arguing, the country is getting more and more into debt. The country is still getting, pretty bad. Every day they don't come to an agreement. Things are getting worse in our country. So finally, they start discussing. Okay, we won't count them as a whole person, but how about like 80%? How about 20%? How about 66%? How about 40%? How about 3/5? Okay, but we're gonna put some stipulations. They said part of the compromise was that the slavery uh, slavery could not be banned until 1808. So basically, for another like 20 years. They couldn't. The Congress couldn't put taxes, high taxes, on uh, enslaved people coming in. The tax had to be flat and even for at least 20 years. Okay, and that's how they came to the agreement. Now here's the thing: um, 3/5 is 60%. I know a lot of people are like, "That's not right." Again, it's all about trying to make sure that those slave states didn't get too much power, because if they did, they could then create laws to keep slavery around. And that's what the non slave states didn't want. They didn't want people making laws to keep slavery around, they wanted to get rid of it. Now, here's an interesting fact. Did you know the word slave does not appear in the Constitution? It doesn't at all. Um, the first and only time you see the word slave or slavery, it's not until the 13th Amendment. And that's not written until 1865. So basically, almost 80 years later, you know, that they finally put the word slave in the Constitution. And the only time it's mentioned is when they're getting rid of it. And also, the thing about runaway slaves, why did they go and catch them? Why did people allow them to get captured and things like that? Well, because here's the thing: the Constitution does state under Article 4, Section 2, a person charged in any state with treason, felony, or other crimes, who shall flee from justice and be found in another state, shall, on demand of the executive authority of the state from which he fled, be delivered up to be removed to the state having jurisdiction of his crime. So, of course, those slave states made running away a crime. So now those guys can easily go into the free states and pick them up. And sometimes, I hate to say this, but it's true, they would just be like, you know what, we just need a black guy or a black girl. And they would just take somebody who was born free and send them down south to be a slave and be like, oh, yeah, here she is. You know, well, that's not her. Yeah, but this is the good one. She's healthy, she's strong, this and that. And of course, those slave owners in the south, they didn't care. Hey, that's fresh hands, that's strong back and things like that. So yeah, again, it's a sad, dark chapter in U.S. history, but it did happen, and we do need to talk about that kind of stuff. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead to go to your question. So again, the word slavery, slave, doesn't appear in the Constitution until the 13th Amendment in 1865. My question to you is this: do you think that the people who wanted slavery, who made sure they had slaves and some of that, do you think they knew that slavery was bad? And that's why they didn't want to add that word in there, because they knew, hey, slavery is a bad word. It's one of those words that people look at and go, ugh, you know, and that's why they made sure it was in the Constitution. What do you think? Or do you think it was just, you know, no one thought to add it in there? What do you think? All right. So, uh, go ahead, answer the question. Once you answer the question, you're done with this lesson. So hopefully you learned something new. Hopefully you enjoyed this. So with that being said, guys, you take care, you be safe, and I'll see you guys later.